So welcome. We're doing contract flow down clauses and dealing with managing the risks throughout the supply chain, because it doesn't matter whether you're a prime or a sub, does it, Reed?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Does not at all. And I want to introduce you to Reed Coltis. He is in Arizona at the moment, but he's going to be heading back literally as soon as we shut this down. He's in a hotel room. We're going to shut this down. He's going to go to the airport and fly out. So we appreciate you joining us today, Reed.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dave. We always have a good time.
We do. We do. He's the Director of Regulated Industries for Dacian. You can read all about that on the right-hand side. They handle SAP integration and consulting solutions. But you're also, this is new on this slide, is the Adjunct Professor for PLNU. What in the world are you doing getting all up in the echelons of being a professor? How's that work?
No, it's good. I mean, half of what I'm doing these days is working with leadership on what they're trying to do to transform their organizations, how they're trying to tackle these challenges with compliance, seeing if that's something we need to build for them, if whether that's process, systems, or people development. So, it was just a natural progression to go back to my alma mater and do a little bit of adjunct teaching once a week. So I have the pleasure of working with some of our youth, and I get to obviously cherry pick some of the best ones to help me go into the field and do these missions. So no, it's really cool. I get to talk about corporate social responsibility and how compliance makes an impact. And in San Diego, it's where I'm at. There's a ton of aerospace and defense contractors. I saw a few San Diego people pop up in there. So you have to reach out to me, let me know where you're at. Connect with me on LinkedIn or whatever. If there's a way I can help you, whether that's professionally or locally in the education system, let me know. But any case, I'm enjoying it. It's a good way for me to give back and kind of get these students started right.
I love it, man. And congratulations on that. I'm very interested in hearing how that goes for you. I know you do have a lot of experience in managing contracts and flow down, and you work on a lot of those things. And I appreciate you joining us today. A quick disclaimer, this event's not affiliated or endorsed by any federal agency. We can talk about whatever we want, Reed. We can do whatever we want. It's not legal advice, even though we will talk about some legal things. And attending this session does not guarantee a contract award, shocking for all the 208 people that are here right now, or resolution of issues. How about that? And any government folks, you can participate because it's not an endorsement or indication to purchase from any vendor that's here, including anybody that's on at all. And it is being recorded, and AI data collection is prohibited. You know why that is, Reed?
Why is that, Dave?
We're real freaking human beings here, and we don't want to be taken over.
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here. But we are here to participate and have a good time a little bit. So tell us why you're here today. Are you new to federal contracting? You try to understand how what the contracting flow down really means. Maybe you want to know if if I could talk right, Reed. Specific contract clause applies to you. You have a contract issue with the government or a prime, or maybe your boss made you come. You can pick as many as you want out of this. Are you doing business with the government? And have you ever been to a GovBrief session before? Those are the kind of things we like to know. And we do love participation. You can pop it in the chat. There's a lot of people here. So if you really have a question, don't put it in the chat. Raise your hand or put it in the Q&A, because that way I can track it. Does that sound good? And if you actually heard what I just said, raise your hand or put it in the Q&A, give me a thumbs up, because we love reactions. Good deal? All right, I'm also going to pop in the session docs for everybody so that you can see what's happening here. There we go. Love it. A lot of session docs in there. You can see executive orders, FAR references are all in there. Love to do that. And then do me a favor, if everybody would click this, because every once in a while we have an issue with for folks being able to get to the work drive on GovBrief, because they have security procedures in place that prohibit that, Reed. Can you imagine? Can you get to this? And then I'm going to show you what to do after you get here. Go up to the upper right-hand corner and click download. It'll take all the docs so you have them ready for you as part of this. Sound good? Thumbs up if you can get to it. Anybody have an issue? The link doesn't work? Hewitt?
I think we got a couple in the chat saying somebody's having a hard time. Maybe reach out afterwards and we'll help you get to the right resources.
I will help you do that. In fact, I'm going to do this for you, I think. Hold it 1 second. Every once in a while we have this happen. So I'm going to do this for everybody. Go back here. Go to here. I'm gonna let me know if you can get this one. This is a Dropbox link. That's on my that's controlled on from my side. Don't change anything. If you would. If you can't, use the regular link if you can. All right, everybody? Whole bunch of stuff there. All right, we got the agenda we already did the introduction, but we're going to talk about it, introducing you to clauses and how the flow down works, the importance of knowing how this impacts your business. We got a great case study for you. It's one of my favorites. Reed is going to not just talk about things that go right, Reed?
Okay. Well, let's say more things go wrong than right some days, Dave.
And how much better is it? Thumbs up if you would rather hear Reed's sorrow stories without having to do it yourself.
I would too. Can I go back in time, Dave?
That's right. If you had advice for your former younger self.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we'll talk about those types of contract flow down clauses that we have. We'll talk about what it is, what's happening with the federal audits that they're talking about now, and best practices for managing flow down clauses, and get into some Q&A for you guys. We want to make this interactive as we can, so make sure use the Q&A or raise your hand, and we'd love to include you in the conversation. So tell us a little bit about Clause Manager. You are actually with Dacian, and there was a you went with the major company, but Clause Manager, actually, is Mike, do you want to pop open and talk about this? You want me to? Or Reed, how do you want to manage that? I will tell you this. Clause Manager is located in North Carolina. They manage over 4,000 compliant prime contracts to help folks be compliant in their clauses. And that flow down goes all the way through the supply chain. There's the web-based cloud version is in beta right now, and you can try Clause Manager. And so we're going to give you the opportunity to do that, and which will also track the FAR changes on new and current contracts so that you know the impact for being able to work on new and current contracts. So the reason why Mike didn't come on is because he just got married. Did you know that, Reed?
Oh, no way. Congrats, Mike. That's exciting.
So he did. So
good for him. Welcome
we're
to the
letting
party.
him. We're letting him, he's kind of sort of here, but he's probably distracted right now. So congratulations, Mike. So tell us a little bit about Dacian, because this is kind of the origination of this whole concept. So tell us about what you guys do.
Yeah, exactly. So Dacian started by helping clients who are the larger A&D federal contractors doing complex tracking of supply chain clauses, flow down clauses, commercial and federal. It doesn't matter either way, but all the way down to tracking all their costs and running their projects and doing that all within an SAP environment. Those are the big guys with millions of lines of data and all of that. It becomes really complicated. But as we went down the path to develop these tools and help clients get to where they need to get from a compliance perspective, a couple big names over there to the right, or maybe a couple small companies. I hope if you're one of those companies, give me a thumbs up. Would love to connect with you afterwards just to hear how things are going. But you always got a line to me as I oversee all of our client relations. But any case, sometimes some of my customers come on here. But we started working with Clause Manager as our sister company to deploy something that was for not just the big guys. The big guys have big tools, big systems, high volume, but so do the tier 2 guys, so do the medium sized businesses, the smaller businesses trying to get into this space for the first time. So while Dacian works just with SAP, the Clause Manager tool is actually an extension that replicates a lot of the same functionality, but can do it outside of SAP. So if you're not an SAP company, Clause Manager has something for you too. So I just did the spiel for Clause Manager. We can talk about that some more if you want to see a demo of that. This isn't meant to be a sales pitch, but we created a solution so clients could manage their contracts and their purchase orders and the connection between all those clauses and down to the line item level that people need to do to track those flow downs. So that's what Clause Manager can help you with, just off the cuff. But I work for Dacian, and we're expanding. We're part of the Constellation Software organization now, and create new ways every day to help the large A&D companies and make sure that they stay compliant.
So Sean, just to say, so Sean's asked the question, just SAP? The answer is no, but Reed works with the division that handles the SAP stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I did all right there. All right with that. All right. So I appreciate that. I'm going to share this out so everybody can see kind of where we are. With the folks that are here, we got 22% are new. Then we're trying to figure out what the flow down is. And they're 65% saying, hey, I want to know if this clause applies to a contract that I'm working on. 9% have issues, and 20% their boss made them come. We're reporting them back to the boss after this. Just kidding. Just kidding. So it gives you an idea. We welcome everybody. So we love having you guys join us for this and have the discussion. So as we're working on this, tell us what your role is in this. Are you in contracting or procurement? Maybe you're responsible for compliance. Maybe you're in finance, and your job is, hey, we've got to get paid. Maybe you're in sales or quality assurance or senior management. Let us know if you have any other comments or things that you'd like us to cover. We definitely want to hear that. Right, Reed?
Yeah, definitely. I saw in that previous poll, there's a lot of folks that are new to contracting, or they just want to find out, how does this stuff apply to me? And that really depends. We'll go into that a little bit, but this, like the disclaimer said, I'm not trying to give legal advice here. My goal for this is to give you an introduction to some of the implications that you might run into, help pave the landscape for you, and give you some business practical advice, or if you will, lessons learned on what I've seen, and point you to some resources that you might consider to make the determination if this is something that is going to impact your role. So we could spend a whole year talking about how each one of these things apply to your specific business, but we're going to keep it at the business application level today.
Love it. And so let's start at the top. What is a flow down clause? What does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. If you kick to the next slide. So for those who are new to this business, we're going to, obviously there's a lot of changes going on right now, Dave. I mean, there's updates being made to the FAR. There are the existing contracts that people have and all the requirements on those. There's pressure to go more commercial. There's pressure to change the way that we price things. There's, reviews going on by DOGE, and that's still kind of lingering. And that was a really higher impact the last time we talked for a lot of people. But
it's still happening.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's different for small businesses and large businesses. So if you fall into a different category, I'm going to try to catch everything for everybody today. But we only have so much time to get into it all. So if you're not familiar with flow down clauses, another way of saying that is the legal requirements that the government holds its suppliers to. Whether you're a prime contractor or a subcontractor, if your end user or your end customer that you're providing products or services for is the government, it's very likely that somewhere along the way you are going to have to abide by some of the government's regulations. We call those the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, or the DFARS if you're in the defense side. Some of these things will apply to you no matter what. We'll talk about that. The previous slide talked about mandatory, non-mandatory clauses. But we're talking about any term or condition ultimately that flows down to you. That's why it's called flow down clause. Whether you're the prime contractor or a subcontractor, if you're supplying something up to the government in support of a government contract, that's what we're talking about when you hear the term flow down clause. But really, it's any of that fine print term or condition that applies to you. And it doesn't stop at just what the government's the federal acquisition regulations are when you think about a flow down. There are commercial clauses too that end up in these things. Yeah. There's commercial clauses that you might get if you're a tier 2 supplier or even tier 3 or so on down the supply chain that are applicable to you that you need to make sure you're abiding by. That, well, you probably want to flow those down to anybody who's supporting you in your supply chain. So that's why I think this applies to everybody, whether you're doing federal business or not federal business, and wanting to make sure you have a systematic way of getting visibility on these rules.
And then we have to comply to these things, right? And it doesn't matter where you are in the food chain. A lot of that gets driven all the way down, or some of them do, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this stuff is compulsory, right? I mean, there's ways to get around it or get exceptions to it. Knowing that is half the battle. Which ones fully apply to you and which ones don't, which ones you can get waivers to. But at the end of the day, there is a compulsory compliance requirement that you need to address and make business decisions on when you see FAR clauses as a requirement sent to you from a prime. So and if you're a prime, obviously you got to consider how you're going to ensure that your subcontractors are abiding by these rules when you share them with them in their contracts, right? I mean, Dave, a lot of people think, well, if I get acceptance from my subcontractors and they say they're going to abide by these clauses, these rules, I'm good. I wipe my hands clean. I just got to make sure those guys do it. Well, what about the guys that are supporting them in the next layer down? How are you ensuring that those guys are also doing the right thing, right? How am I making sure that we're sourcing things from the right place and around the world, making sure that buy America or don't buy China or whatever it is? We'll talk about that's my case study we'll go into on the next side. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Yeah. So, and this is one of the things that, and I usually work on the front end in business development side of things and help folks bring the contracts in. So I want to say yes to everything.
Oh, me too.
I'm a sales guy, right? I want to say yes to everything. We will do it. And if we can't do it, we're going to give me a problem I can solve, right? But if we're not aware of how far this goes down and our implications, we have a couple of customers and clients, and Jay might even be on here. Jay Talbot, if you're on here, raise your hand, because I'd love to pop you open to talk about this, because he actually does programming at the BIOS level on the chip. So know that everything goes. Even though he's all the way down in the weeds, all that rolls all the way up. So it's always good to know that we better be paying attention to this and the new FAR regulations that have changed. Anybody notice that? Just a couple changes in the FAR. Just a little bit.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. All right, so take us through your case study, and I love this case study for multiple reasons. But Reed, just show us how it can happen.
Oh man, so the interesting thing about this is I'll skip to the end and I'll go back and talk about how we fixed it. But we found out at the very end of a multi-year project for a company I was working for that we had delivered some things that explicitly went against the contract. We had delivered some stuff that inadvertently one of our suppliers bought from China, and we had a clause in our contract that said nothing on this delivery can be from China, and it was because we were delivering to Taiwan. So it's a great case because we were delivering to the Taiwanese government. They were our end user, and while it wasn't a flow down particularly for U.S. federal government, you can think about this in the case of doing commercial overseas business, or even flip the script and talk about it from, if I was delivering that to my government, how would I stop this from happening? So what really happened? So I'll go back and tell the whole story, Dave, because it was a big deal, because everything that we were delivering had to abide by this rule set.
What's the size of the contract here to chum about?
Oh man, it was like a $50 million project.
$50 million. So everybody get your head around that, right? $50 million risk. Everybody's R word should be going through the roof. Risk, right?
Well, yeah, and the reason why this is important to think about, there's always implications of not delivering to the term of the contract. I mean, there's some compliance risks that if you break the rules, you might be penalized. That's one. If you don't abide by the rules and you deliver something that's not in scope because of the quality implications of it, it doesn't meet the spec because it said you couldn't deliver something in a certain way. This case, not from anything that was manufactured in China. You might get rejected and you're not going to get paid, right? I mean, that's the other thing. You also might have penalties that are like we did. We had liquidated damages for every day that we did not deliver something on time and quality checked by the point it was delivered. we would get a $10,000 penalty. It was a percentage of the total value of the contract, but $10,000 a day is a pretty hefty fee when you have a system that took several years to build, and trying to replicate that. So going back to it, what we had was a system that we were delivering, and it was actually, Dave, as simple as one of the field laptops and one of the set of the mouses on the desktop that went out to the facility to help control a command center for a training system.
Let's get this right. So
Yep.
laptops and mouses. What do you call it? Anyway, the mouse, right? That's what got you there?
That's what got us. Not everything that we manufactured ourselves. It wasn't the inputs with our strong relationships with the suppliers that we had under the direct contracts. It actually was a field procurement that was made by a commercial contract as part of the supply chain that satisfied a need for some field devices. So multiple levels down, somebody went to Staples or whatever it was and bought some stuff and delivered a package for a computing system. The rest of the system, with all the simulation equipment and everything else that was required to run this command training center, it was all right. 99.9% of it was right. But there was a big clause in the contract, big red letters, big bold letters that said nothing can be associated with China here. And then the same thing applies. It doesn't matter if it was you're delivering to Taiwan, but there's Buy America clauses, right? Within the U.S. federal government. I just like this story because it applies to anybody who's sitting on this call, whether it's a commercial case or a foreign overseas case. But if you're trying to track those things and you don't make sure that on every purchase order systematically that all your suppliers, and then require your suppliers to abide by the same rule sets, and you don't share it's Buy America or Do Not Buy China or whatever it is that you have, and you don't also hold them to liquidated damages and delivery day delay clauses, you can't hold them accountable, and you're opening yourself up to systematic failure to get something that you really shouldn't have bought in the first place to deliver to the requirements of a contract. So the moral of the story was, for us, is we didn't have the right system in place. We didn't have the right quality checks and balances in place to verify that every make part that was either commercially bought or not was going to satisfy the right limitations of the contract, which in this case was don't deliver anything or buy anything that was manufactured in China, which is hard to do. It has cost impacts, but we should have known that, and that should have been part of our bid. So this goes all the way back to the very front end of this, right, Dave? Somebody who's creating a proposal to apply for a contract and try to win work. And in your proposal and your estimate, and the team who does the bid, the team who captures all the requirements, needs to make sure that this is part of it. And today it has paraffin packs, all sorts of other things, because you got to know where you're buying your stuff from. You got to know your costs. And if you're buying it from a cheap manufacturer overseas versus a more expensive or a different onshore solution, that may also impact your costs from the upfront estimate, right? So I like to tell people, flow down clauses don't come in at the very end. It comes in at the very front.
Absolutely.
Before you even accept a contract, and before you even decide what is a flow down requirement that you need to ensure that your suppliers are taking into account. So we were pretty lucky on this one, Dave. I'll tell the final outcome, but it was simple enough. I mean, it caused some steam and some heat in the field because people were a little offended. They were like, "How could you actually deliver this to us?" The first
thing they saw was a laptop, but they unpacked that said "Made in China," and
it was the first thing they touched, which is unfortunate because that's the first thing the user put its hands on, and so it was a whole ordeal. And we did see some penalties, and ultimately we got through it because I threw an engineer on the next flight out, and he went to the right place and bought some stuff and swapped it out before the 10 other laptops were discovered, but we were able to resolve it, and it was a nominal impact. But you don't always get that lucky, because it could have been as simple as a chip that was embedded in your system, and that's like a whole return and repair scenario where you got to ship everything back and remanufacture it. So that's why I tell this story. I want people to think about it. If they don't take anything else from today's session, is what impacts to your quality, what impacts to your delivery, and what is going to stop you from getting paid? Because I'm a sales guy. I run commercial for our division. I care at the end of the day about making sure that we make money the way we're intending to make money, and my clients can do the same. So it has impacts all the way across the board.
So liquidated damages, how much was it for you?
No, as I said, it was $10,000 a day. It was like 0.5% of the total value of the contract or something like that per day as a penalty. So that's why the next day I had somebody jump on a flight. My old CEO said flights leave every hour, and that was a case where they really did.
So, and we want to avoid this. That's why I love Reed's willing to just say, hey, look, learn from my mistakes. I love that as well. All right. So question, how do you manage your clauses now and the clause flow down? So you got to be able to know not just the next tier down. That's the ones you have communication with regularly, right? But when you're down 3 or 4 levels, it gets nuts, right? So maybe you don't. Maybe you use sticky notes and napkins. That's a joke, sorta. Excel is a lot, what you're going to find a lot of people using, as well as some people do have a library of clauses, right? But then the library of clauses changes, like they did on the first, right?
Yeah.
A lot of new clauses pop down. So then the question about using SAP, that's a selfish question to support my main man here, Reed. And if you have any comments, let us know. I will share some other comments, but let's talk about what this looks like for multi-tier flow down requirements while they're filling that out. Is that right?
Yeah, no, let's do it. I like to show this diagram for anybody who's part of the supply chain, because I'm expecting that's why anybody's here. You're either at the top as a prime, or you're somewhere down in the tier, and you're receiving these flow downs. And you can go to the next slide. I think the biggest thing that both parties, depending on where you are, it doesn't matter if you're the top or the tier 2, or you're the receiver of the contract as the prime, or you're somewhere down in making stuff to order to deliver and consolidate components, or you're making things to stock as part of commercial batch jobs, or you're supporting parts and materials to make those components that are in the stock. Like it doesn't matter. The importance of this is to know that everybody's responsible for some level of diligence to ensure, do I have to comply with it by the time it gets to me because of the size of my company? Or am I ensuring that my supply chain is doing that evaluation? Because what I hear from the government really often, and there's more and more pressure on downstream audit, is the prime contractor doesn't just get to wave its hands in the air after it flows it down to the first supplier and make sure that the supplier accepts those requirements. They have to manage everybody underneath them. They have to hold their supplier, their direct suppliers, accountable, and ensure that the lower tiers are abiding by the rule sets that they have to, as well as part of the supply chain. We hear more about wanting to map supply chain out in large procurements. That's obviously changing with the government pressure to say we want to spend less money auditing and doing all this stuff and streamlining things to go more commercial. But we all know that that's probably a 4-year cycle, or an 8, however long the cycle will be. But you still have all the things that you signed up for. You're not going to get waivers for all the things you're under contract for already. So at some point, if you click through the next one, some of the examples of the regulations that you might want to recognize apply to you, like I said, is not just the FAR and DFARS, the most prominent ones that are posted on your purchase order or referred to on the back end of somebody's terms and conditions, but looking at things that apply to environmental social governance. Like, don't exploit the children in the Andes, or go buy rare minerals from somebody who's not fair sourcing stuff. If you're a commercial business, I don't care if you're Starbucks and you're supplying stuff to the government for their offices. Or even if you're not and you're selling stuff and you're saying I'm Starbucks and I care about my impact to the environment and the overall society, and we're saying we're going to fair source things. If I'm not making sure that the person I'm buying beans from and the person I'm grabbing the beans off the field who's doing the work is doing it in the way that I say I am, I'm probably up for some flack or some repercussions on the back end, even from my shareholders.
Yep.
Let alone the compliance requirements if there is a government contract involved. Because I don't even think we've talked about it yet, Dave, but like if you don't apply, for those of you who don't know this, but like if you don't satisfy the compliance requirements, it's not just that you might not get paid, you might not be invited back, you might get excluded from doing future work. You're probably going to get a bad mark on your company's record. I mean, it can be pretty devastating, especially if you're trying to get in this space for the first time and you've never done this work and you have to pick up some of these requirements and decide, can I even satisfy them? You might want to look at, well, can I even satisfy them all together? And what's the cost going to be to my business to pick up the additional administration or the additional cost to abide by these rule sets? So these are all the things that I think about. And I think you can go probably to the next slide, but there's like a whole.
I want to throw this out because Caroline is asking a question. If the prescription clause does not require the prime to flow down to the sub, what are the top criteria for a prime to consider when deciding whether to flow down on a discretionary basis? And this gets to the question of what happens a lot of times. Maybe you get into this a little bit. You want to?
I will.
Right.
Let's save it. I'll try to get there. But no, it's an important topic, Dave, because a lot of times you see primes flow down the whole
thing.
kitchen sink. The whole kitchen sink. They say, here's the contract that I signed up to. Go figure it out.
Yep. And David's talking about it. Some small businesses are exempt, right, not for mandatory, like exempt from mandatory cost accounting.
Yep.
True.
Yep.
But they still might flow it down.
They might slow it down. And sometimes the primes aren't really fair about it. I try to.
No way. Are you telling me that the primes are not always fair? No. Reed, say it isn't so.
No, I mean, even more than that. I think a lot of times people end up seeing more requirements flow down to them, and sometimes even more stringent requirements are flowed down to them than is in the prime contract. And so you gotta do an evaluation and understand, well, I can push back. I mean, I am entitled to, in some ways, to say, well, why are you flowing? I'm a product manufacturer. Why are you flowing me down as generic terms? What happens when I'm doing to provide a service? I'm not providing you any services, or vice versa. I'm a commercial company. I only make commercial parts. These are commercially available, and I'm not going to open up my books to the government or you or anybody else because these are the same price that everybody else pays. Right? I mean, those are the decisions that have to be made. And so I pull up this slide to show you, a little bit about the importance of flow downs. People a lot of times just think it's a legal problem, and it really impacts every area of the 6 business systems that we're used to seeing in the federal government, because it impacts the requirements it takes to get paid in accounting. It impacts how you track property that may be owned by the government or fostered or facilitated to be owned by the government, and you're possessing it. It could impact the way you're doing your value calculations on your projects. If you're doing earned value, how you're managing your materials and moving things around and sharing costs and all that stuff that you do when you're procuring stuff, purchasing, how you're flowing it down to your suppliers, obviously. And like I said earlier about estimating, which kind of kicks off this whole thing, I like to put it there because it's the start of the loop and it's the end of the loop. Because if you're doing repeat buys, you're going to recycle what you did the last time, and you want to make sure you got it right the first time and estimate how all of this is going to impact you.
And this is my favorite. This one will give you a headache. So do me a favor, download this, print it out so that you can see it. But take us through this just from the top all the way through so people get an understanding of what they're looking at here, because this is some crazy stuff that Reed put together.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a cheat sheet, and it's kind of an eyesore, but it really paints the picture of the complexity of, depending on who your stakeholder is or what your role is, you might fall into one of those areas in purple on the top, and you might say, that's my silo, that's my responsibility. I want to know how flow downs could impact me, and if there is a certain level of risk or something I need to consider in my area. And if you go to the left-hand side, you'll see where it starts up front. How am I going to systematically track these requirements in my contract, what I'm signing up to? And then how am I going to get those same requirements, DPAS ratings, flow down requirements, all the things that are important, sharing your prime contract down to the line item level, and get those into the hands of my purchasing team to get those into the hands of my suppliers, all of that from the very up front. But obviously it impacts how you bill and the requirements of how you generate invoices. Like I said, with government property, how you track things back to the prime contract and management government's materials and equipment. Well, if you have a claim and you're trying to do changes to contract, there's going to be impacts to program management, how you can go about doing that, down to your resources and how you're doing your purchase orders, all the way through this. But you'll see everything in here are things that don't typically come with a standard system, which is why we built it out when we were doing it for the large companies that are trying to manage this within their core system of record, their ERP system, so they can do live audits with the government and say, yep, we did it the right way. I flowed these things down. I tracked it the right way at the contract level. And I shared it with my suppliers, and they signed up to those things and they accepted it. So if you fall into one of these categories, happy to go down into the details separately, but you can be assured that you're going to be asked about how you manage your flow downs at all areas of this supply chain, of this business process.
Is it fair to say that it can break down anywhere in there?
Oh, absolutely. It's sometimes worse if it breaks down up front, because it's going to make sure those problems are going to trickle down all the way to your delivery. You're probably going to get stopped at quality. You're probably going to get stopped at invoicing. You're probably going to get stopped at delivery, and ultimately not even be able to close out that contract, which is, if anybody else was a contracts manager like me, struggles with closing out contracts and making sure we did everything right along the way.
True that. And Kim is asking, will this presentation be sent to us? It is sent to you already. It's part of the session handouts. If you can't get to it, let me know. We'll make sure you get a link to the alternate box.
Good man, Dave.
To this one. But yeah, this is one of my favorite sites. It gave me a headache the first time I saw it, and Reed showed it to me. I was like, man, you better be giving away aspirin at the end of this thing. So there you go. So let's talk about some of the risks. I say we push off the risk to everybody else. What do you think?
Oh, it sounds easy, right, Dave?
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, we're a prime. We're just managing the contract. We're just going to make sure all of our suppliers say they're going to do the right thing, and then it's no longer our responsibility.
That's right. That we just outsource the risk, because that's what you do.
We're going to flow down everything in the kitchen sink.
That's right. Go ahead.
No, I mean, this is one of the things that happens a lot of times, and I'm not going to put blame fully on the prime, and everybody's got their processes to make sure they have everything accounted for, but there's a certain level of diligence and decision making that needs to happen within an organization prior to just copying and pasting all the contract clauses that are on your prime contract and saying, these might apply to you, accept them all. Well, you do that, and you're going to probably cover yourself and make sure that, well, they're going to sign up to them or not, or they're going to ask for exceptions or not. But you're really slowing down the process by doing that. So I urge primes to take some time to put some systems in place that can automate or replicate recurring buys, or make time to do the decision making with the legal teams, the quality teams, the program management teams, everything from the proposal level, or even right when you're accepting your contract, to put some effort into what is actually flowed down to the suppliers. I'm not going to say everybody's bad about doing this. Sometimes tier twos do it to each other and all of that, but if they if you take the time to do it up front, you're going to spend a lot less time negotiating these contracts, and you're going to make sure people are really signing up for and understand what they're signing up for. And there's a little bit of an education, and sometimes there's a ramp up. But if you do that, you're going to set yourself up for more success, and you're going to get the real feedback from your supply chain saying, yes, we can abide by these, and my suppliers can abide by these too. And when you go to audit them, they're going to be ready for that. And on the flip side, right, if you the risk to being the next tier down in the supply chain is well, dealing with that tension. I'm sure a lot of people want to get the work. You're good. Go to the next one. That's where we're going. That's where we're going with it. Is that tension between the different tiers of supply chain. So being able to recognize that you can take a step back and look at it and say, these don't apply to me. This is it might be on your prime contract because it applies to you, but it doesn't apply to me. That's a healthy conversation to have. It doesn't make you a bad guy, but it has to be justified and warranted as well. So bottom line is, read what you're accepting, do an evaluation and assessment of which ones are going to apply to you, and don't be afraid to ask the question or challenge what is appropriate, what is not.
And Robert's saying the FAR DFAR is overwhelming for small companies. I understand the need for compliance, but it should be simplified. Hey, it sounds like you might just want to try a tool. That's a shameless plug.
It is a shameless plug. I mean, we are creating tools to help people track these things, and with the invention of AI and other machine learning and models to try to automate the ability for people to track changes and for people to try to stay on top of new clauses or revisions to clauses that come out, knowing which one of them have compulsory immediate impact to their contract or which ones don't apply because they accepted them previously and you're under an old version and you're grandfathered into that. But the one of the things you have to know about is sometimes there are clauses that are silent that apply, and we give you some resources in here to go and look at those because there's too much to dig into in the next 10 minutes or so. But there are mandatory clauses that you're not going to get out of, and there are mandatory clauses that don't even show up on your contract that will apply to you regardless. And if you're doing the work, it's going to flow down to you, and you need to understand which ones are going to be applicable to your business, and that's a business decision that has to be made. The non-mandatory clauses could be the ones that are negotiable that you could challenge and may or may not apply to your business. So knowing the difference between the two are hard. And yeah, totally, Dave. I get the challenge with that. As a small business, you don't have the overhead, you don't have the ability to go out and hire somebody to review this stuff and all that. But I have to kind of push it back and say you can't afford not to. I'm not saying you have to hire me. I'm not even a compliance advisor. I'm not giving you legal advice. We rely on Rimini, like all other companies that do this stuff and do it well and can give you the legal backing to do it the right way and make some of those decisions for you. Highly recommend you do that if you've never done that sort of evaluation, or if you're looking at a contract for the first time and you've never done government work, to consider doing that, because you can't afford the mistake. It will put you out of business. So if you like I said, there could be penalties, there could be inability to do future work, and it's just a reputation thing. Like, nobody wants to be known as the company who couldn't meet government requirements and broke the law, because that's what they are. They are law.
That's a fact. So let's talk about some of the best practices. We do have a couple of questions that we'll get to, I promise. Yep. So I think we touched on this already a little bit, but ultimately the biggest recommendation I have for primes and subs is to once you have a relationship with somebody, and if you have an opportunity to ask questions in the negotiations phase to confirm which ones are really applicable to you, and challenge whether or not you have to abide by certain flow downs during the course of it. And if primes can take some time to ensure that only the necessary clauses that are applicable to their subcontract group are flowed down, it will
ultimately save you money in the end. I truly believe that you take a little bit extra time to say, these ones don't apply to my suppliers. These are the ones that I'm going to pull out of their contract.
All right, sounds good. And then finally, you guys can review these. I think these are pretty good. And it kind of applies to what Michael's asking is, when do you finalize contracts with subs then, before or after the prime award? And is it an either or?
I mean, you can do it after the fact, but if you've already bid on a contract and you said, I can abide by these requirements, and the people who I'm going to hire to help me do the work didn't already say that they were going to sign up and could meet those, you're going to be kind of in a bind. I mean, if you committed and submitted a response to an RFQ, and exactly, Carl, I was going to say, you definitely wanted to do it before. So it's kind of trying to lead you to water. If you can do that at the proposal and estimating phase, when you're going out to bid and you're getting acknowledgement of your requirements, yep, absolutely, Peter. There are a lot of other requirements I'm not mentioning here, and there's a lot of stuff that have to be considered, which is main purpose of this. I'm trying to raise awareness on it so you don't get into a situation where you bid on something and you accepted terms and you don't have supplier support and you can't do it yourself. You're going to be in a position where you might have to default on that. Nobody wants to do that.
That's a fact. And one of the things that we're finding for flow down clauses and the impact of CPARS, right? For those of you who don't have contracts that reach CPARS level, most of us want those, right? We want to have good CPARs, and you can get nicked and dinged for a sub on your CPARs.
And it can impact you a long time. I've seen businesses close down over it and creating wholly new things, and they're starting from scratch again because they made a simple mistake. And sometimes it's not malicious, but the impacts are still the same. Whether you didn't know the law and you made a mistake, or you knew the law and you made a mistake, you don't really get a buy.
No, they don't. Buys do not happen there. Hold on one second. There, some folks are asking, if you can't get to the main handouts, try the Dropbox link. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Sorry about that, Joe. Didn't mean to send that directly to you. Send it to everyone here. There you go. And if you have any trouble, we'll make sure you get the handouts. Promise that. But to your point, first of all, it's awareness. And once you're aware, then you know that you have the ability to look for the answers that you need, right? Small businesses need the answers just as much as the big boys. Right?
Oh yeah.
So with that in mind, that was a wait, hold on a second. Did I have that? I ended that. Let me end that poll. Sorry. Didn't realize I was still running. Let's talk about what you want, we can do to help. We're going to get you guys out of here. We'll answer a couple questions as we go through. We want to address some specifics with you. But let us know. You want to schedule a demo to see Clause Manager? That's for everybody, not just SAP. Right?
That's right.
And then if you have an SAP situation, you can discuss that with your contract flow down. Most of us that are here aren't using SAP. So go ahead and check that you want to check a demo for Clause Manager, see if it can work for you. It doesn't cost anything to check it out, right? So might as well do it. And it says, get some aspirin for this stuff because it's nuts. That's what Reed caused with that one slide.
Your head still hurt, Dave?
That's what it was. And then if you have anything else, let us know. We want to make sure you get that. And we're going to get to Q&A in just a minute, but just know everybody's going to get a copy of the video recording. We're going to finalize this, send it out to everybody. It takes a little bit to do that and edit it, make it work. The session docs will be included. If you can't get to those, you just send it to support@clausemanager.com. It'll get back to me at the one at the bottom, or you can send it to support@govbrief.us and it'll get back to me as well, and we'll make sure you get that. You can have one-on-one meetings to talk about those things with Clause Manager support. And get that Clause Manager demo. This is new. It's coming out. It could not be a better time. Thumbs up if you think the Clause Manager has a good timing for when everything happened. With everything that just dropped down on the FAR, yes, I agree. It is a perfect time to be looking at this. Even if you've been looking at things as a contract library, their timing could not be better to bring a product to the market to say, hey, small, easy enough. for small businesses to use as well as larger businesses to use. And if you get into the big boys, you got Dacian that can do things in the SAP world, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're trying to, the idea behind Clause Manager, and I'll leave it at that, is to give people access to visibility in real time, systematic way on what clauses are coming through and they might have to apply, and giving them a way to track and link it to the contracts and procurement documents that they have without having some huge, robust contract lifecycle management system or some large ERP system. And most of those don't come with what you need for this anyway. So being able to scan a contract and populate it and turn it into a purchase order is something that's really cool. And there's a lot of functionality we're dropping around that. But if you go to the rest, we only have about 5 more minutes left, Dave. And I think we'll probably have to respond to some of the Q&A outside. But I want to take a minute to give people some guide around these resources if you're not familiar with them. So I don't know if it's worth clicking on, Dave, you want to check the link, but these are some really good tools to be able to share with your team to get access to the data in a mass amount of information, which is largely where we're sourcing a lot of this stuff directly from the government. So that's the acquisitions part. If you need to search for and find certain CFR requirements and everything that follows up underneath it, this is a great tool as well, because it really helps you get to the data quickly. I think we have a couple of other ones in here. Oh yeah, so these are a couple things that are largely endorsed by the government or government advising entities or institutes. And this is a really cool way to look for, by your area, the kind of information in doing acquisitions and some resources that help you, well, generally do your job, and some of the considerations you might want to take if it applies to you more specifically.
The good thing is, Reed, the government shut down, so flow down doesn't matter.
Oh, that's great, Dave. We can all take a day off. I'm just glad these websites are still up, because they are really good tools. They're being maintained. They allow you to sort through the different types of clauses and export the data in a way that is really helpful, and it's a yeah. And then this is a really good tool book if you're just getting into this for the first time. And I love NDIA. This is not a plug for them or by any means, but I do participate in some stuff with NDIA. But they pretty much have an organization for everybody who's doing any sort of defense work within the industry, and the government participates as well as industry. And this is a great a book, the FAR book that they put out, and it's a good publication to get your hands on or have on your coffee table when you have guests and they want to hear about all the government regulations. You do that right at a dinner party, Dave?
What's that?
Talk about FAR, pull out your book.
Yeah, I put people in a coma every day. Oh my gosh, this stuff can be crazy, right? So and first of all, Reed's going to be 5 minutes from now. He's shutting this down, bolting out of here. So we got a couple minutes for a couple of quick comments if you'd like to engage. Reed, let me know, raise your hand. We could do that. I like what Peter Pickens says to everybody. Clause management has always been a challenge. It's more challenging on the receiving end than it ever was on the issuing end, because the issuers can just throw it all down, roll it with the kitchen sink, right?
They hold the hammer, and I understand that's the fear that we have sometimes being a smaller supplier. Or being a sub K on something, is you want the work. You don't want to lose the opportunity. And I've seen more ships sunk by accepting terms that really shouldn't have applied to you, or something you couldn't abide by, and people missed it. And so that's why I do this talk, Dave, and that's why we created this system, because once you accept these requirements, you have to have a way to track it. That's why we created Clause Manager for those that don't have SAP. For those that do have SAP and want to talk to me, my email is down there to the left. Find me on LinkedIn, email me there if you want to chat. I'm happy to talk with you and turn you to the right resources, or if I have somebody who I can connect you with and you need help, I will do that. But what else we got in the chat, Dave?
We got Carrie saying, can FARS, DFARS be amended if you can comply with part of it?
Man, that's a tough question. It really depends, because some of I mean, you're not going to probably go back to the government and ask them to amend it. But you might be able to make a case that it's not applicable to you, even if you accepted it. But there's just some flexibility that does not exist, and it really depends on the clause. So I'd have to take a closer look at what you're looking at.
And then Carrie's adding on, flow down requirements generally state to flow down to subcontractors.
Right.
We mainly use suppliers and purchase COTS products, right? Because there's some exclusions for some of those. A subcontractor would be more than a supplier.
Correct. Yeah, it could.
Yeah, could be. Is this sufficient not to require clauses to be flown down?
I mean, that's a decision you can absolutely make. You can say, well, we're going out for a commercial purchase on this, and these things don't apply. But if you go and share or skip some clauses and you just go straight to the company in China or a company that's sourcing from China, and you decide not to flow it down, and it was a Buy America or a Do Not Buy China. I just use that example because it's pretty easy. And they end up buying something from China. Well, that's on you. So that's kind of the hard part about it.
Even COTS, right?
Even
COTS. So all of these, you got to be careful because we've done some briefings on BAA compliance, right? BAA and TAA compliance, and because the government creates confusion. Reed, just saying.
Why would they do that?
Why would they do that? They want everything to be just simple. All right. And I see, David, you got your hand up real quick. You want to chat for a second? What you got? John David Smith?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Here's my question for either you or Reed. As an example, there is a federal facility in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the Y-12 nuclear weapons plant, that is notorious for violating the FAR in areas of small business, because the FAR clearly says, as I understand it, that all small businesses have to be paid net 15. They will play games and play like net 90 or net 120.
No way, David.
And they have absolutely flat screwed over many of my other colleagues that are business owners. So my question is that an issue that you take to the SBA to fight, or how do you fight things that where the primes are blatantly disregarding the FAR?
Yeah, you should do that. I mean, you should put them on notice that they can't do that first. I would start there, but you should probably escalate it. I mean, even if you didn't escalate it, and I don't know nobody wants to go to, some of these things are just not worth chasing for the money, and you don't want to go to legal anyways, but you'd have a legal claim there probably if you put net 15 on your clauses and you submitted it and it was net 15. And I've seen that happen before. And I think some of these organizations just try to get around it. So, you probably have the right to hold them accountable to it, but certainly something you could escalate. And I'm sorry, Dave, I think we're out of time.
And I will say one more thing. Tina says, is there a reason not to include all FAR clauses in the attachment to the subs? Then we'll get you out of here.
No, I mean, that you can again, but then you're going to open yourself up to people who are going to decline work because they say it doesn't work for them. And if you're making it mandatory and they have to accept it, they're going to say, well, these don't apply. And then you're in this back and forth thing again. The more you can do to slow down only what's appropriate would speed things up. So there's a give and take there, because sometimes it doesn't take that long to sort through this stuff. But hey, listen, you
got to get out of here. Get on a plane. Get out of here. Great job, Reed.
Always fun, Dave. Always fun. I enjoy
it. And I'm gonna stick around for just a minute. You get out of here. Great, awesome job. Give Reed the props for being able to bring this. Really appreciate it. And if you need his help, his information's right there. I'm going to stick for just a minute because there's a couple here that I think I might be able to help with, and we'll get you out of here. Good stuff, Reed.
That's great.
All right.
Hey, everybody, take care. Don't hesitate to reach out. Bye now. Bye, Dave. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thanks. All right. So Robert's asking, can you explain how businesses evolved from a DFAR standpoint? Where did you start and where are you now? There's a lot of different ways to be able to approach that. I'm not going to talk about my standpoint, but what I would say is schedule some time, do do a review with the folks at Clause Manager, and they'll be able to bring in great examples of how to do that. Sound good, Robert? And then regarding tools used specifically, absolutely, very good. Christy, the FAR defines a subcontractor to include suppliers of purchase orders. So if a clause is a mandatory flow down or applicable to a COTS purchase, what exemptions does it being COTS give us? Great question, Christy. I'm going to have Reed. I'm going to ask that question, and we'll make sure we get that to get an answer for you. If a clause is mandatory, it makes it mandatory. That's what I know from my limited experience. All right. So Jessica, yes, this was my problem. We originally had this scheduled for 2 p.m. So sorry that you just popped in here. We had to switch it to 1 p.m. to get Reed on a plane. So it was recorded. Everybody will get a copy of the recording. The recap will go out. It might not be until we'll get 2 recaps out. One will be just this raw recording, and one will be the finalized recording after we get it all worked up. So you all will get that. And if you have not requested a demo with Clause Manager, please do that. They did this to bring this information to you to help bring you up to speed. Support them just by taking a look at their software. It'd be great. And if there's anything else that you guys need, please reach out. We will make sure you get it. You are welcome, Brent and Jessica. You are welcome. Shabbat shalom to you, David Smith. And you're welcome, Yanali. I hope I said that right. All right, we'll get you guys out of here. Thanks for being here. You are welcome. You are welcome. And thanks again for joining us. One of my favorite things as we're doing this. So appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the week, and go out and make clauses work. How about that?